Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:00. Whoa. Professor, I'm sorry. We could not possibly have a Friday morning without our official Friday morning program. Music saluting Michael McKay. So, Professor, cue up the correct song here. Otherwise, it's not really a Friday. We couldn't possibly do the show without our official Friday morning music. In the meantime, while the professor gets that going, it is 5:06. It's O'Connor and Company this Friday morning in your nation's capital. Coming up at 7:05, Rachel Feinstein from the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington talk about Georgetown and their BDS vote because they can't let Yale have all the anti-Semitic fun. 7:35 brings us Emma Waters of Heritage Foundation. There it is. It is Friday, and we're in love. Thank you very much. Now it's a Friday. We're going to talk about the administration's hope that young women will have more babies, and so they're going to pay them for it. And at 8:35, Kurt Schlichter talk about the news of the day and his new book. I'm Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice. Welcome back from vacation.
Thank you so much. Happy Friday, everybody. I've got a little tan and a little cold after coming from the beach.
Well, welcome home. That happens a lot when you go on vacation, but
Yes.
That's good. Glad you're rested. Welcome back. For the uninitiated, they may have noticed that The Cure's Friday I'm in Love is always the song that we begin the program with on Friday, and it goes all the way back for decades now to our late, great, legendary board operator who worked at WMAL for decades named Mike McKay. He would always play this at the 5 a.m. hour and 7 a.m. hour to let his wife know at home that he was thinking about her. And,
So sweet.
Lost his wife while he worked with us on the morning show here at WMAL, and we lost Mike about, it's been 7 years now.
Wow.
But he still lives in our hearts, and so does his beautiful wife as well. So there's certain traditions here in radio that we still try to hang on to. All right, so this is, again, the judge. I almost feel like in the first Trump administration, they had a whole plan. We got the deep state. We got James Comey. We got the FBI. We'll have a special prosecutor. And we'll undermine everything Trump tries to do through all of these investigations and all of the leaks and all of the rumors. And, none of it was true. And now, Trump comes back. Trump wins. And it's like, all right, how are we going to stop him this time? I know we've got the judges. The judges are going to block everything. Oh, wait. Oh, come on, Nancy. Come on, Chuck. You can't block everything. I mean, what if it's something, obviously reasonable, like, for instance, proving you're a citizen when you go to register to vote? Nope, We're going to block everything. We're going to block every damn thing. We'll find a judge to do it. And yesterday, sure enough, Clinton appointed District Judge Colleen Collar-Cotelli. Boy, that's some nice alliteration, and I want to tip my hat to her for that. But beyond that, she's got nothing else that's going to get my salute. She blocked the administration's plan to put in place a proof of citizenship test when you go to register to vote. It is illegal for non-citizens to vote in the United States of America. The Trump administration, looking to ensure that law is enforced properly, decided to require a proof of citizenship. Let me rephrase this. It is illegal in the United States of America to drink alcohol if you're under the age of 21. If the Trump administration required proof of age before you got an alcoholic beverage, this judge would block it, I suppose. This is the stupidest, most ridiculous, most offensive, most unconstitutional overreach of a judge I have seen in my lifetime. That she has said, nope, you can't make someone prove their citizenship when registering to vote. As soon as you think they've gone too far, they go a little bit further. Patrice, I think that this is the jump the shark moment on all of these judges.
Oh, well, I think we probably even have more other cases, examples that could also be jump the shark moments. This is, the idea of, we saw quite a bit of lawfare and leading up to the election of President Trump, and we assumed that because so much of it had been knocked down and, has at this point disappeared, that this would be over. Unfortunately, the left is using the courts, and some of these judges are willing to go along with it, because I don't know if it's because they're, flexing their own partisan muscles through whatever tools they have, whether because they think they have legitimate grounds to challenge or to agree with the challenges being brought against what the administration is trying to do. Here's the problem: when you block everything, then it's like you're blocking. Then it means it loses whatever you're suggesting. It loses its meaning, and so it's hard for us to parse whether you're really standing on the law as a judge, or whether your own personal partisan motivations may be coming into play. And I think that's what's happening here. When it comes to election law, yes, you have states certainly administer elections, but there is federal election law. And if this judge decides to only challenge certain parts of what President Trump is trying to do, and allows other pieces to go through, like changes to mail-in balloting, changes to, let's see here, what is this article? Of course, my mouse doesn't work, but the judge is only blocking certain aspects of what has been challenged here, which makes me wonder, okay, well, really, what's the point? Why are you only going after certain things why not just block everything and then let a higher court decide whether you were right? And this judge is not doing it here. So it kind of reads a little bit partisan to me.
In her argument, she claims that the Constitution entrusts Congress and the states, not the president, with the authority to regulate federal elections. Consistent with that allocation of power, Congress is currently debating legislation that would affect many of the changes the president purports to order. No statutory delegation of authority. The executive branch permits the president to short-circuit Congress's deliberative process by executive order. All right, so first of all, judge shouldn't be looking at today's headlines to figure out whether something is going to... Well, Congress is debating this now, so I'll stop the president from doing it. No, what are you talking about? This is not supposed to be about today's headlines and what Congress is debating, number one. Number two, she's right. Congress and the states have the authority to regulate federal elections, but the executive branch can enforce those laws. The executive branch... How else are you going to enforce the law? Congress writes the law. Executive branch enforces the law, and this is a fine guideline to enforce the law. Scott Jennings, CNN, last night, has a pretty good theory on this.
Well, I think there's a difference between saying whether you're complying with the law, and then you have these individual district court judges setting effectively broad federal policy that is specifically reserved for the president of the United States. I think we do have a constitutional crisis, and it's being caused by these judges. They're not here to tell us. They're not here to tell us how to spend the money. They're not here to set broad federal policy. That is the president's job as elected by the people. These judges are supposed to be settling discrete, specific matters, not policy setting. I think Vance is right. I think Trump has a point. And these judges want nothing more to continue the lawfare against
I don't think anybody's going to be surprised to hear that you think Trump is
they're
right.
They're doing this on purpose.
However,
I get it.
By the way, Abby Phillips, it's so rude and so obnoxious to just dismiss one of her guest panelists on the show as, well, no one's surprised that you think they're right. So, in other words, they can do anything and you'd agree with them.
Just another guest on the panel.
That is no way to treat your colleague at CNN, but they hate Scott Jennings because he is always right and he makes them all look like fools. But one last point he makes here.
You want individual federal judges who hate Donald Trump.
No, I don't.
To tie him up for 4 years.
No, I don't.
If you want a big policy questions decided, let the Supreme Court do it. But in the interim, the executive has to be allowed to govern.
That is the bottom line. And it's this pattern of behavior that we're seeing these judges. And now this final one is just, it's like I said, it's the jump the shark moment. You ask any person on the street, do you think it's okay? Do you think there's anything wrong with requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote? Who's going to say no to that? Unless you're an activist and you're looking to cheat. Yeah.
Exactly. Only the people who want to cheat. Only the people who want people who are ineligible to vote to have access to our elections to cause mischief.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Meanwhile, I'm sure a judge will block President Trump's attempt to investigate ActBlue.
Yeah.
ActBlue is the fundraising arm for the Democrats and liberals in this country. It's utilized for various political campaigns and causes. It's an online electronic fundraising. It's like a give, send, go kind of thing, but specifically oriented for Democrat causes and Democrat politicians. And he's going to take action against ActBlue in terms of investigating them. Politico has the story, signing a memorandum targeting foreign contributions in American elections. Attorney General Pam Bondi reportedly to be involved in the crackdown. ActBlue is bracing for the action, according to Eric Doherty on the X platform. Right now, it looks like the Attorney General has been directed to investigate the allegations regarding the unlawful use of online fundraising platforms to make straw or dummy contributions or foreign contributions to political candidates and committees, and to take appropriate action to enforce the law. I saw some Democrat activists yesterday saying, oh, this is a gift, because if you start investigating ActBlue will be able to turn this around into a fundraising cause. Look, the Trump administration's trying to shut us down, and that may be true. They may see a boon of many uninformed Democrats out there giving money to ActBlue to be able to spread around to stop Trump because they think that he's being a fascist. But facts are facts, and there are stories after stories after stories about foreign contributions, straw contributions. In fact, I noticed one person replied to this post announcing the investigation, and he included a screenshot of donations that were made in his name for a campaign in Kansas. He took a screenshot. It has his name. And it says, maybe now someone can explain why donations were made in my name to ActBlue candidates in Kansas when I've never been to Kansas. And it's all these small money. It's like that ActBlue has been accused of this, that they do identity theft. They take other people's names and they do just these little $2, $3, $2, $3 contributions. And I know that doesn't seem like much, but it adds up if you're doing this with AI bots that just grab your name.
Absolutely.
And see, and you can check your name in the federal rolls to see if your name has been used for a donation. There are lots of accounts of this, duplicates, small money donations made in people's names that they have no idea what happened there. And whether ActBlue did it directly or whether identity thefts did it and ActBlue didn't have the appropriate and proper precautions set in place to prevent that from happening. Either way, there's criminal activity there, it looks like, and ActBlue is in the crosshairs.
You know, it's so interesting. So I'm reading the statement from the president, the CEO of ActBlue, Regina Wallace-Jones. She said, oh, they're really raising money. Nothing will deter or interrupt ActBlue's mission to work and enable millions of Americans to participate in our democracy. She wrote that they raised more than, get this, Larry, $400 million during the first 3 months of this year. This is record-setting for them for a single quarter. They absolutely think this is going to be a way for them to get more dollars in the kitty, hopefully legally. But also, interestingly, this is what the administration is doing goes quite along with an investigation that congressional Republicans have been leading into ActBlue for years now. And I guess earlier this month, 3 GOP House committees issued a staff report kind of detailing some of these fraudulent activities and the fraudulent actors using the platform to really rip people off. And so, you know, ActBlue has had to admit, there are problems, and they had to update some of their practices, like making sure that every credit card transaction includes that 3-digit code on the back of it. So they know. They themselves have an issue. The question is, how much deeper does this go? This is very good.
When you buy a pair of shoes online, Patrice, and I'm just going on a limb here, but I'm guessing that here and there, now and again, you have purchased shoes online.
Yeah, you're guessing right.
All right. I imagine what the palatial walk-in closet looks like at the Onwuka home. And I'm thinking a whole lot of real estate is taken up by Patrice's outfits and shoes. Your poor husband, what does he get? One rack? One little?
He gets a good third of the closet. I mean, that's great, right?
Oh, he's so generous. He's a lot bigger than you. And so when you buy those shoes online, you put your credit card in, you put your address in, and then they say, okay, what's your secret 3-digit code on the back of the card? Anybody who has made any online transaction in the last, 10 years knows exactly what we're talking about, the little CVV code. In 2021, after allegations of fraudulent donations during the COVID campaign of 2020, it was discovered that ActBlue never asked for the 3-digit code. Didn't want to know. The only reason why you put that 3-digit code in there is because the vendor wants to make sure that you're not a crook. The vendor wants to make sure that you haven't stolen that credit card. ActBlue didn't want to know. ActBlue, hey, I don't care where you got the credit card, just give us the money. We could care less. We don't care about it. So in 2021, this was raised. It was pointed out. Everyone knew about it. They didn't make the reform. They didn't change their transaction protocols for the 3-digit code on the back of the card until 2023.
Wow.
It took them 2 years to respond, and they just barely rolled it out after money was already being raised by all of the people running in the primary, after Joe Biden was able to raise a ton of money.
Yes, exactly.
In 2023.
Speaking of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we have an email appeal from her fundraising operation. They said Donald Trump wants to make it harder for people like you to contribute to Democratic candidates, so it's easier for billionaires like Elon Musk to buy elections. Fight back and send us your dollars now. No,
and don't worry about no matter whose credit card you're using, just give us the money. I'm sorry, that was a Kamala Harris fundraiser? That begs a question. What's she running for?
Ooh.
Oh, she's still paying off the debt from her last campaign. That's right. It's 5/23.
Coming up, exclusive video of Fairfax County when a registered male sex offender enters women's locker rooms at recreation centers because he claims he's a woman in proximity to children. It's pretty gruesome, but, stay with us. We've got this and more. It's O'Connor and Company at 5:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:36 Friday morning. Thanks for tuning in. We got plenty to get to. Buckle up. 7:05. Rachel Feinstein, Director of the D.C. Government and Community Relations for the Jewish Community Relations Council here in Washington. Because Georgetown University, they can't let Yale and Harvard have all of the anti-Semitic fun.
They said, hold my coffee.
Yeah, exactly. I'll show you. No, actually, I have to say, it looks like Georgetown has gotten the memo. They were going to have a BDS vote. The BDS vote is always sort of the gateway drug to full-on welcoming Hamas onto the campus. They have postponed that vote now. So that's a good sign. We'll see exactly what happens here as they move forward on a referendum for the university to divest from companies associated with Israel. 7:35, Emma Waters Heritage Foundation on this idea of paying $5,000 per mom for a new baby. Is that retroactive by any chance?
My husband asked that. We've got 3.
Patrice,
I'll hold my thoughts on this proposal for when Emma comes on, but I'm not sold.
Fair enough.
That way.
I was going to say, you've got 3. You can cash in for one more. Then at 8:35, I wasn't sure how I felt about that position, but then yesterday I saw that Sunny Hostin thought it was racist, and Whoopi Goldberg said it was misogynist. So I was like, okay, if they're against it, it's got to be good. I'm all in. 8:35, Kurt Schlichter. He has a brand new book. All right, so we've told you the story of one Richard Cox. He, of course, you'll remember, is the transgender sex offender who just can't keep himself away from young women and girls' private spaces and locker rooms, including a high school locker room on a open swim day. Nick Minnock, ABC 7, has been tracking this person and the fact that the Fairfax County Commonwealth's attorney let him out without jailing him after he had violated other laws. He's got now an exclusive report on more predatory behavior from this guy. Here's cut 2.
It took nearly 3 months of back and forth with Fairfax County, but 7 News finally got our hands on surveillance video of Tier 3 sex offender Richard Cox, who we've reported on before, inside Fairfax County rec centers, clearly breaking the law. 7 News obtained this exclusive video through the Freedom of Information Act, and it shows registered sex offender Richard Cox inside Fairfax County rec centers in close proximity to children. Everyone you see blurred is a child. That's a violation for Cox as a registered sex offender. This video also shows Cox, who now claims to identify as a woman, repeatedly entering women's locker rooms in these facilities. Look here. Little girls running out of the Oakmont Rec Center women's locker room just after Cox walks out. This video from Franconia Rec Center shows Cox standing right behind 2 kids. And this is video from Audrey Moore Rec Center.
How do our public officials continue to not only allow this to happen, but, in my opinion, encourage this to continue? By publicly stepping aside and saying, oh, no, there's nothing to see here, no crime. Cut 3, here's Minnock sort of following up on what the Fairfax County policy is.
You might be wondering why Cox was allowed to use women's locker rooms. It's because that's Fairfax County's policy. If you say you're a woman, you can use the women's locker room. And the county doesn't have a system in place to flag sex offenders when they check in at rec centers. Are you going to change the county's policy that allows biological men and females locker rooms and bathrooms? 2 months ago, I asked Fairfax County Chair Jeff McKay if he intended to change county policy. He walked away. When I tried again a couple of weeks later, the county had news signs around the Board of Supervisors to keep the media away. Today, I sent emails to Fairfax County supervisors whose districts include these rec centers to ask about the locker room policy. None responded. We've been asking these questions about protecting women-only spaces in public facilities for months, but only Supervisor Pat Hardy seems concerned.
The sad part is that can still happen in Fairfax County.
Nick Minnock, 7 News.
There you go, Patrice.
It's dangerous. Excuse me. I think these policymakers are becoming complicit in what is, the sex offenders' dream and paradise in giving them access to women and to children. But you know what? If we even take out the fact that he's a registered sex offender, let's say he wasn't. Let's just say he was a man claiming to be a woman and just wanted to get inside there. Even if they change their policies to identify sex offenders and maybe stop them from entering places where children are, it still doesn't solve the problem, which is that a man who is not a sex offender could still go in there fully bearded, fully dressed as a man, go in, say that he's a woman, and then go in and access women's safe spaces for whatever pleasure or desire he has, whether it's to see kids naked, see women naked, just to be in their presence and, gain some satisfaction from that. This is a broader issue that needs to be tackled. And these local policymakers, just like the national ones, they can't stick their head in the sand and pretend like this is not an issue. Unfortunately, I hope that someone wouldn't take this as far as to then physically assault a child or a woman. But that has happened, and that can happen. And even if it does happen, I have no confidence that these policymakers would even care then. So this is the extreme that we've reached in this country, and that's why at Independent Women we are fighting not just for sports, folks. It's not just about women and girls sports. It is about their spaces. It's your wife going into the locker room at the gym. It's your daughter or your granddaughter going to the public bathroom at the public park and having a full-grown man in there with her. That is what we're fighting against.
Yeah, and this is why I continue to say, you're right. The sports aspect of this in terms of the competitive nature and the unfairness of sports, huge issue. That's the low-hanging fruit. That's the easy stuff. Even Gavin Newsom says, it doesn't seem fair for boys to be able to compete against girls. That's the easy stuff, guys. What about this? What about your daughters having to go to a public restroom, a government-owned facility, and have this guy? And you look at the pictures, you look at the video. He's not even trying to look like.
He's not even trying.
He's not even trying. He gets a kick out of this. He gets a thrill out of it. You know how I know that? Because he's literally a registered sex offender.
Exactly.
And Fairfax County, Steve Descano, the Board of Supervisors, it's not just that they're permitting this. They're encouraging this. They want this to happen. Makes them feel good about themselves. Great reporting from Nick Minock. It's 5:44. An Israeli television channel is doing a full investigation and documentary report on the events that followed the October 7th terror attacks of 2023. It's set to air this Sunday, but they have previewed some of the features of this. This is sort of like a 60 Minutes for Israel, right?
Okay.
Investigative journalism. And they've actually spoken to a lot of people from the Biden administration. It looks like from the clips that they had Jake Sullivan, the national security advisor there. They had people from the Israeli government talking, a lot of people sort of delving into the tick-tock of events that happened after, well, Israel's version of 9/11 basically was such a horrific, devastating terror attack. And there's some things that have been revealed already in preview, and this one is the most disturbing. In the days and weeks following the October 7th terrorist attack, the Biden team, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor, they rallied together, Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, they rallied together and put together a strategy, Patrice, not to dismantle and decapitate the leadership of Hamas, the terror organization, not to disrupt the funding channels between Iran and Hamas. You know, Iran using money that the Biden administration had given them to fund those attacks and plan those attacks, not to disrupt the funding mechanism between the Biden administration using federal tax dollars to support Hamas that was supposed to go to humanitarian aid that then was obviously turned into money to fund the terror attack, or money that the United States Biden administration took from our treasury to pay for the UN under humanitarian auspices to then pay for this terror attack. No. They didn't do any of that, Patrice. It appears that their focus was on removing Bibi Netanyahu, the duly elected democratically appointed prime minister of Israel. This is despicable.
Talk about misdirected anger. I mean, instead of worrying about the actual terrorist who carried out such an atrocious, violent attack, you're worried about the head of the Jewish nation. But obviously, because they really wanted to get him out, and this was a way to do so. It's remarkable. We have this reporting here. One of the senior officials interviewed Mr. Elon Goldenberg, who was later, get this, Larry, appointed Kamala Harris's Jewish community liaison during her presidential campaign. He was the one who said that ideas were being floated around the White House on what could be done to accelerate a process that would lead to Netanyahu's leaving office. Quote, there was a lot of people who are talking about, including in the Oval Office at times, the idea of the president going out and giving a speech about this. But I guess at the time, Joe Biden was still incredibly popular in Israel. So I guess it would have been taken as a way to really get the Jewish people to say, yeah, they need to get rid of Netanyahu. I mean, this is disturbing, but it exposes just how anti-Israel and anti-Netanyahu that the Biden administration and then rolled right into the Kamala Harris campaign really had been.
It's absolutely outrageous, and all of the happy talk in front of the cameras about how they support Netanyahu and they support his efforts, and there isn't any daylight between them. It was all a lie. They were plotting to remove a duly elected prime minister. It's almost like the Biden administration doesn't like democracy. They don't like the fact that the people of Israel chose their leader and wanted to keep him in place. That's why there was a whisper campaign here in America. That's why you saw a lot of online television analysts and interviews and various other things sort of planted in the liberal media that undermined Bibi Netanyahu, undermined his efforts to actually protect his nation. But the whole idea, the fact that weeks after this terror attack, days after this terror attack, there was a meeting entertaining the idea of targeting Netanyahu, in some way blaming him for what happened. You know,
exactly.
There's a sexual assault in your family, and you blame your daughter, you blame your wife, you blame the victim. He's blaming the victim. This was an attack on the people of Israel, and they suddenly think, well, if we could just get rid of that prime minister of Israel, this wouldn't have happened. You gotta kind of understand Hamas. We're just as angry at Bibi as they are. What the hell is that? What kind of foreign policy is that for our one greatest ally in that region and the only functioning democracy in that region?
Can I also add something really disturbing from the quote from this guy that I mentioned, Mr. Goldenberg? He said they were going to have Biden say to the Israeli people, quote, you can end the war, get all the hostages out, get a deal that includes having elements of Hamas leave, not all of Hamas, elements of Hamas leave, or you keep doing what you're doing. Israel is in a forever war, et cetera, et cetera. But that's a false choice. And frankly, that's a defeatist mentality. That's the mentality they had about, which is why they wanted to undermine what Netanyahu was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sends one other message, too. We, the United States of America, believe and trust and have more faith in the Hamas terrorists that just murdered over 1,000 of your countrymen and continue to hold them hostage than we do with your Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. What a despicable human being Joe Biden is, and all of the people that surrounded him. Also, by the way, while this story is now unfolding, Georgetown students, as I've been alluding, are set to vote on a referendum to divest the university from any company with ties to Israel. This is the gateway drug to Hamas protests on your campus. Harvard, Yale, they're a couple of years ahead of Georgetown on this one. Coming up at 7:05, Rachel Feinstein, Director of D.C. Government and Community Relations for the Jewish Community Relations Council, will join us to talk about that. Right now, it's 5:53.